examples you brought were places where there is no free media, or not really free media, but a big audience. We are a blogging environment where there is freedom but no audience. So what do you recommend?
Well, I think if you're talking about how to get more people to come and look at your blog, if you're talking about audience, I'm a great believer in developing your own core editorial proposition. I work with this in media in developing countries, or I like to call it the majority world. I like to, when I go into some of these countries and say, look, what do you stand for? What is it you do that no one else does? Or how do you tell stories that's different? Don't just follow the opposition to try and win their ad revenue and to try to beat their audience figures. What can you do that's so different that no one else is doing? That is it. That's the differential. It's thinking clearly about what, even us as individuals, what is your core editorial proposition? What are the 3 things your blog stands for that no one else is doing? How can you set yourself apart and build on those? But it's not necessarily all about ratings, is it? It's more about sharing and just saying that one thing every now and then. When I was a journalist, when I was an editor at the BBC, I used to set my reporters' objectives. And one of the most popular objectives was to come up with a story that's not on the daily news agenda, or it's not what the opposition are doing. It's a story, and I'll use the phrase again, had it not been for you, the world would never know. And that could be one story a day, one story a week, one story a month, one story a year. I don't care. As long as it's original and it shows information that no one else knows otherwise. And I think with a blog, if I will go back to blogs where I get a feeling there's going to be some originality. It's not just going to be, oh, I saw something interesting and here's my opinion on it.
Tony Strucker from Austria. I got a question because I see very much reservation on the side of the mainstream media in terms of quoting bloggers and so. I mean, but I think on the other side, blogs bring a lot of expertise into the discussion of any issue, as we are not sort of under the same pressure as journalists who simply have to report what's on their daily agenda or so. Yeah. We just can sort of cherry pick what we do and then bring our expertise into it. And what I see is sort of an unlevel playing field. I have absolutely no problems quoting wire services, media, whatever in my blogs correctly, but I very often see mainstream media picking up issues and ideas that are clearly coming from the blogosphere, but we are never quoted on their side. Are we such a threat to them?
It depends whether it matters to you. If it matters to you, you probably should challenge it. It doesn't really matter to me. If the story is important, then I would look upon that as free distribution. But I may be working in a different area. So, for example, if you're blogging on something that you really passionately believe in, like the environment, human rights, or whatever, you then give up ownership of the intellectual property because you just want distribution. You want more people to talk about it because it's important. If you've written a lovely piece of work, which you're really proud of, and they've lifted it without any attribution, I would write to them. I would write to them and say, if you're allowed to quote from my blog, but please just give a link. So it's a matter of 2 things. You know, it depends what the importance is, but certainly challenge mainstream media. They shouldn't do that. You know, as I say, I've worked with the BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, and the rule is you don't plagiarize, you don't lift. If you take some information, you have the decency to give a link back or give some attribution. And you do that for 2 reasons. One is it's decent and it's right, and the other reason is it covers your back, which is an English term that means if the blogger got it wrong, it means you can always blame them.
Joe Lidobarski from the UK. You said that in authoritarian regimes, activists can use blogging as a sort of form of protection. But do you think that's still going to be the case in the future as it becomes more saturated, because anybody can say something controversial on Twitter, but not everyone can attract an audience. So do you think that there's a risk that actually, as it becomes more, as blogging technology takes off, it'll just be exposing people to the authorities rather than giving them an audience which will protect them?
Can you say the question again? The last bit, not the first bit.
Because, for example, on Twitter, it's very easy to tweet something which is controversial and will turn up in a search engine and will have your name attached to it, but you might not have thousands of followers who are then going to kick up a fuss if you get put into prison or something like that. Is it not just going to expose people in the future? Is there a risk of that?
Exposing the people who are tweeting?
Well, I mean, as new media sort of takes off, because I'm just wondering if these the people who you highlighted in your presentation, they have that protection because they were the first people to do it.
Okay, yeah.
They were able to get an audience. Once more people start doing it, once internet blogging is easier to do, and you're able to set up a blog and say something controversial. Yes. Yeah.
I think it's changing so fast that it would be a fool to try to predict anything. I don't know what will happen to tomorrow. I think this story in Tehran is fascinating. I think the fact that people are on this live station now, people are chatting about that live on Press TV. Press TV is government run. They're broadcasting over broadband. There's a chat room underneath, and people are challenging authority. People are out in the streets risking their lives, and they're blogging. I think we just got to keep watching. I don't think there's anything happened like this before that we can predict how it'll turn out. My feeling is that the more people publish through tweets or blogs, the less easy it'll be to keep freedom of expression down. I think it's out now. It's got a life of its own. And I think, oh, that's good, I can hear people now. I think it's going to develop in an exciting way. I think it should help to allow voices that have never been heard before to say things. And we ought to be listening out for that, particularly us in the West. I think we have a duty to try to surface those things that are being said by brave people who are risking everything to say them. So I think the bloggers in the West who look to the countries that are being suppressed and try to give a helping hand by ensuring that the information gets further afield, maybe reworking it, maybe pointing to it, saying, oh, this is interesting, I found this angle, and making sure they're not alone. I found something interesting the other day. You probably all know about it, but came across Twibes, Twitter tribes. I'm amazed every day I log on and there's another thing. I think, I wish I'd invented that. But there's some great ideas, and I don't know how humans seem to be able to come up with new ideas for using media and distributing information in ways that are meaningful, that just almost every day there's something new. It's just amazing. Sorry. Any more questions?
Anyone else?
Well, thank you for those questions. That was good. Sorry I couldn't hear because of the air conditioning. It's funny down here. But thanks for your patience and time.
Are you coming to the boat tour is the question?
No, I'm going back to London now. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very, very much, David. Thanks a lot.
You're very welcome.
And now we'll just have a quick break while we're waiting for our next speaker.